the papers and everything. So if we carry on, first of all, on preliminary matters, I understand we've had 2 apologies from Councillor Linda Maloney and Councillor Sam Gorse. I'm not aware of any other apologies.
We've also got Councillor Finlay.
Councillor Finlay as well. Okay. Right, no other apologies. If you can note them, please. And Les is here, Deputy Sergeant for at least one of them. Okay, thank you very much. Are there any declarations of interest that anybody needs to declare in relation to any item on the agenda? No. Okay. And has anybody got any matters of urgency that you'd like to admit onto the agenda? No. Okay. And I'll mention that agenda item 10, Appendix G, contains exempt information, and I understand that the monitoring officer will advise. Right. Okay. Yeah. When we get there. Right. Okay. So the next item is the minutes of the previous meeting on pages 7 to 10, and that's the minutes of the last meeting held on the 31st of January. They're submitted for approval. Can these be approved, please? Okay, thank you very much. Next item, item 3, protection fire standard, and I'll invite the Chief Fire Officer, Phil Garrison, to take us through the report. That's on page 11.
Thank you, Chair. And I just said there, probably in hindsight, probably being better to do agenda item 4, which before 3, because 4 will inform 3 rather than 3 inform 4. However, I'll do them in the order that before. So the purpose of this report is to inform members of the full implementation of the protection standard, thereafter referred to as the standard in the business as usual within the Directorate. And the standard and the associated implementation toolkit are provided in Appendix A and B of the report. And the recommendation itself is that recommendation, it is recommended that members note the information provided in this report. So just a little bit of background, which probably draws on agenda item 4. The National Fire Chiefs Council and the Fire Standards Board have drawn up a number of standards for application across UK Fire and Rescue Service, particularly English Fire and Rescue Services. There's currently 16 standards, but the number of standards are growing and emerging on a reasonably regular basis. First standard is to try and attain some uniformity and set a minimum level that should be attained in any particular fire and rescue service in any particular aspect of the work that we do. So we range from the likes of safeguarding standards, route prevention, protection, and a multitude of others. The report and agenda item 3 relates directly to protection and the work that the protection team have done to meet that standard, and that standard has been met. And moving forward, the intention is every time that we've met the standard, we will bring that back to the authority just to provide the authority with sign off and assurance in relation to that. And when the standard is released, the Fire Standards Board release it with a toolkit as well, and services then take to look at the application, look at the content of the standard, look at the toolkit, assess any gaps, and then work to address those gaps and then report that back as the standard being met. Meeting the standard is one thing. You can go beyond the standard itself, but certainly from an inspector point of view, it's highly likely that they will review progress against the standards in relation to some of the work that they do. But as I say, agenda item 3 is specifically around the protection standard and the attainment of that level of standard, and that has been achieved. To report that back to members. I'm happy to take any specific questions on any aspect of it.
Okay, thanks very much. Any questions, any comments on this? No. In that case, can we agree the recommendation on page 11? Is that agreed?
Agree.
Yeah, thank you very much. Right, I know the Chief touched on it, but we now formally go on to item number 4 on page 15 of the agenda, please.
Thanks, Chair. Okay. And the purpose of this report is to inform members of the progress made towards compliance against the national fire standards, and the recommendations recommended that members note progress against achieving compliance with the national standards and the work undertaken within Merseyside Fire and Rescue Service to implement and ensure compliance with the national standards. So as I say, the Fire Standards Board releases a standard. It's brought into service. It's dependent on what the standard is focused in on. It's then considered by the strategic leadership team. It's then directed towards either the director or an area manager who has responsibility for the delivery of that particular standard. They then undertake a gap analysis of the work that we've got in place currently against the proposed standard, and as a result of that, we kind of commence some work if work is required to meet that standard. At which point, once concluded or regularly updated against that standard, then we'll come back to the strategic leadership team, and then once full compliance has been met, it will come back to the authority for ultimately sign off. The standards which are currently in scope and approved standards are captured within paragraph 10 on page 17, cover off code of ethics. Again, that standard is particularly applicable to the authority as well as the workforce, and self-evidently, the inspector will look at how that's applied across the whole of the authority and the service. Community risk management planning, which relates to how we go about assessing risk across the service, particularly the development of our integrated risk management plan, or what will become our community risk management plan. Data management, how we utilise data, how we service data needs. Emergency preparedness and resilience, again, that standard has been introduced and significantly improved by Merseyside Fire and Rescue Service based on the work that we do nationally. Emergency response driving, fire investigation, leading and developing people and leading the fire service. Those two standards have been released in the last kind of number of weeks. Operational competence, operational learning, operational preparedness, prevention, protection, and safeguarding. And then there's a couple of standards which are imminent, because we've been consulted on the formation, which is fire control and communications, engagement and consultation. And as I say, the processes are similar to that described in relation to agenda item 3, which is the standard is considered and the standard is then discharged by the authority. And as I say, any gaps in the way that we deliver against that standard are then changed, amended and addressed. Page 22 through page 23 gives you a kind of an application of where the progress that was made. What I would say is, some of the progress is reflective of the work that we've already been doing in service. It's nothing new. Self-evidently, just the reach of the standard doesn't really go through that work as it stands. And then the subsequent pages from 25 through to page 41 kind of capture again progress against the standards. But as I say, some of that stuff is emergent, some of it is very much business as usual for us, and share happy to take any questions in relation to those standards.
Okay, thanks very much. Yeah, Les?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, the inspectors are in a month. Will you be tested against this, or will they, looking at the pie charts, it's going to say, oh, well, you've made good progress on that, but obviously you haven't completed the red bits yet.
Informed by, I think, rather than they said quite categorically, we're not here to check against the standard, but self-evidently the areas that the standard factors in are the areas that we would want to be able to demonstrate kind of confidence in. I think if I've been honest, I think they will have a real long look at code of ethics. Code of ethics was one of the first standards released, and self-evidently given some of the stuff that's happening across the fire rescue service in the broader sense around kind of culture. Self-evidently, I think we will really look into how we are addressing culture, and self-evidently how we are responding to the code of ethics standard. But notwithstanding that, they will look at some of the other areas too, the fact those because self-evidently areas of focus for them anyway. So informed by, but not making a judgment on the basis of progression.
Okay, yeah, Jenny?
Maybe it's just me and I'm not looking at things right, Phil. Why is the stuff on page 37 around leading development people, why is that not?
It's a good question. You're not looking at that wrong, because leading developing people and leading the service have literally just been released. So just this week, Deb and I have sat having received these to start that process of going, right, okay, where are we? What evidence do we provide, and are we in a position to code that as red, amber, or green? And Deb has taken them as a way to start to populate them rather than not referenced in the documents, which they have been released now, but containing in the document, we just haven't, they haven't started to work through the kind of criteria that's in the pictures yet.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Anybody else? No? In that case, can we agree the recommendation as set out on page 15? Is that agreed? Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 5 on page 43, supply of fire coats and overcharges. Again, over to the chief.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And Howard is sat to my left, so we may well ask Howard to kind of comment on some of the procurement processes if needed. But in effect, the purpose of the support is to update members around the provision and supply of fire coats and overcharges, so firefighting kit. And the purpose of the report is to inform members of the outcome of the tender process to supply fire coats and overcharges for Merseyside Fire and Rescue Services, as well as other fire and rescue services across the Northwest. We do it as a consortium, given the benefits of doing so. And the recommendations that members approve the award of the call-off contract to Valley Clear Limited for the supply of fire coats and overcharges for a period of 4 years, with an option to extend that for a further 12 months, subject to satisfactory performance. And what I would, and so that is normal practice. What I would just draw members' attention to is probably the sections which relate to quality, diversity, and staffing implications. Because, of course, we procure fire kit, we want to make sure that the kit is fit for purpose from a firefighting perspective, but also if you look at paragraph 20 through to 23, that kind of covers off some of the work that's being done to ensure that the kit is reflective of the diversity of the workforce. And we have firefighters with who are small in stature, and the extreme end is firefighters who are tall and big in stature, and we want to make sure that the kit that we procure meets all of those needs. And so we're part of the procuring the kit. In the first instance, we've trialled it at a couple of locations, particularly around gender, differentials of gender, and the feedback we've had is really positive around a kit that we are seeking to procure. And then, we've then embarked on that tender process from the 5th of May moving forward. So we're looking to kind of publish that tender on the framework. So again, if very much is a tendering document that needs to come to the authority on the basis that the financial implications for the service are in the region of 200,000 plus. But actually, we can contain within the budget, which is £315,000. So again, competitive process, but we are seeking to have the recommendation supported by the authority on the procurement and purchase of fire coats and overcharges.
Okay, thanks, Chief. Any questions? Any comments? No? Yeah, go on, John.
What's the general lifespan of an fire electric?
It's an interesting question, that, because actually its life is based on what number of washes, right? So dependent on how busy a crew is and how challenging the environment that they operate within, it may well shorten the lifespan. As you go through the services, the lifespan for the kit is elongated. You're probably talking in the region of 3 to 5 years. But actually, when you kind of look at the replacement of that kit, technological advancements, more often than not outstrips the replacement of the kit. So you start to, when we've always set our stall out and having the best possible kit for firefighters, which is reflective of the diversity. But as it evolves, we want to be at the leading edge of the kit and equipment that we're providing to staff. So it may well be that sometimes that's superseded, but generally it's linked into the number of washes. Probably once a report coming back to the authority at a future point in time around the green kit, contamination and so on and so forth, which is being right at the forefront of the decisions that we've made. The authority has allocated a specific budget around the management of contaminated kit. But the best way to avoid the potential cancer-related issues associated with people not clean kit, make sure that the cleaning regime is suitable and sufficient to one offsets against the other. But as I say, generally based on number of washes rather than number of years.
That's great.
Okay, thanks, John. Anybody else?
Just say
Yeah,
each
right.
piece of clothing has an individual barcode, and so the people who manage them check the barcode. So each piece has its own life history, and there's a certain amount of washing, and it has to be returned and so forth. It's a specification.
Okay.
I understand.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And then it's scrapped.
Yeah, we condemn kits if it's not suitable and it's not going to provide the level of protection that a firefighter would need.
Okay. Right, so we're happy to agree the recommendation on page 43 of the agenda. Is that agreed? Right, thank you. We move on to item 6 on page 59, menopause policy. Over to the chief.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Again, this report relates, back to the diversity of the whole of the organisation, not specifically firefighters in that regard. But it is a reflection of the work that the authority have done to ensure that menopause and the impacts of menopause are considered by the service and responded to effectively. So the purpose of the course is to update members on the proposals to further improve support offered to staff undergoing the menopause, and the recommendation is that members note the existing support offered to menopausal women, and we'll come back to that in a short while, including specific guidance documents, the introduction of the menopause lounge support network, and the ability for staff to reclaim hormone replacement therapy prescription costs, which is a decision that we made some time back now, and approve the newly created attached menopause policy, which captures both existing support and new proposals developed following extensive consultation with staff. And what I would say is, we have engaged staff in it quite considerably in the formation of the policy itself, recognising some of the, what I would describe as some of the challenges or the main problems which are captured within the policy itself. Talks about poor concentration, tiredness, poor memory, feeling low, depressed, low self-esteem, mood swings, temperature control. All things where we want people to be able to perform at their best, and if we don't consider the implications of the menopause and how it impacts on our staff, I think we would be doing them as a service. The tough reviews that have been kind of shared with the authority, and we've sought to put in place arrangements that are reflective, meet those needs or those kind of challenges, and really kind of considered why, because we want people to thrive in the workplace, and we want people to be the best that they can be in the workplace, and we recognise that sometimes we can work collaboratively together to assure that they are able to do that. And hence the reason why we've sought to introduce the menopause policy, but also a raft of activity and work associated with it.
Okay, thanks, Chief. Before I throw it up, just a couple of points. First of all, for those of you who attended the learning lunch at 12 o'clock today, we did actually have a discussion on the menopause policy as part of that. The only other point I wanted to raise, on paragraph 4 of the report, it actually says, equally the phrase woman is used, although transgender men may also be affected, as anyone born with a uterus will experience menopause. But the actual recommendation on page 59 talks about noting the existing support offered to menopausal women. I'm not putting forward a formal suggestion at this stage, but I'm wondering whether perhaps we should use the phrase menopausal people instead of women. I don't know. So that's something maybe the chief or other people might want to comment on. Now, I think you had your hand up, didn't you, Les?
Wasn't on that point.
No, wasn't that? Okay, well, on any point.
But I agree with that. I mean, I support that when I heard it before. And that's actually a debate that's in the news right now today.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that the menopause, we've got the policy here, it's interesting. We've had a policy for a while, it's just a reiteration of it, and other issues. But this is a normal human condition. It is something like all of us will suffer growing old. Don't grow old, my advice. But it
Better
is.
than the alternative, Les.
There's no alternative.
Well, it's better than the alternative.
So this is just got to be normalised. Whatever we need to do, it's nothing. It's going to happen. It's going to happen to people, and we can come to that whole. And I've been since this debate, that I've been mugging up on some of the legal background to it, and, you know, gender recognition certificates and all this sort of stuff. And people talking about changing them. As far as we know, these are our great staff. You could replace the word staff. You know, because that's what they are. It could be members who aren't staff, but same thing applies. We do need a policy, and this will affect also our plans and policy on remote working, and we've got to look at, you know, what people are, you know, are just have uniform dress, what people wear, for comfort, for temperature control, for working collectively with other people, working on their own. There's lots of issues here, and we've got to be looking forward on this, not looking to what happened in the past, but what it is that we want this organisation to develop for the future, to be inclusive and welcoming to all our staff, irrespective of what they call themselves.
Okay, thanks, Les.
Chair, if I may just pick
Yeah,
one point
yeah.
and then we'll take that away, in respect of
Okay.
the language around woman or move to people or to staff.
It does say in the policy, an individual. So it doesn't, I mean, on the policy explanation, it says woman, but as you read it on, it does say an unsettling time from an individual. So if you just replace woman with individual, it should cover it.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
But there is this whole important agenda for women need to be feeling that there's policies for them, men need to be assured that there's policies for them, but the whole needs to be both compatible, so that everybody feels that they come to work and they're in a place that welcomes them and is respectful for them.
I'll bring Chief back in, because
No, look, that's absolutely fine. I think we'll just find the kind of the language which is appropriate. We know what the intent of the policy is.
Yeah.
And whether it's individual, people, staff, I think there's a way through that in respect of being clear around the policy itself, but equally the resources that are available to staff and individuals going through the menopause.
okay, thanks, right. Yeah, Minnie?
That's Lenny.
That's
Oh, sorry, Lynn. Lynn. Please.
That's Romy then, sorry.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, just looking at the page 60 where it says only 9% of employees in the internal menopause awareness survey said they felt able to discuss the issue, with 22% stating they could never discuss it. I'm thinking of the people who have to open up that conversation.
Yeah.
What support is there for them to guide them through it? Do they get any training on you know, how to you know, open that up, I suppose, because a lot of people do not want to bring it into the workplace or discuss it. But obviously they should be given the opportunity to do that. But it's a very difficult thing to manage. So I'm wondering what's there for the managers and the people who have to, you know, put that process into
Okay, thanks, Lynn. Is there any other questions or points before I bring the Chief back in?
I just want to say it's good. Especially the bit around pay prescriptions, because that's, you know, that is a positive.
Yeah.
Anyone can have a policy and say this is what we plan to do, but actually something to say, you know, we don't make your prescriptions. Just, I've seen loads of menopause policies. We have one in where we don't take it off prescription, so we'll be taking that back. But I just think it's just a one step more than words. So well done. That's all
Okay.
I'll say.
There's a plan to change that. There's a plan to make that.
Yeah, nationally there is,
Yeah.
however, they have been.
Bring you in anyway. Yeah, okay, no, well, I'll bring you in.
So to come back to the card, a couple of bits about how we facilitate people having a conversation. So twofold. One is the part of our occupational health team. So, you know, the intention is, and part of the proposal is that we would have a nurse, right, available for staff to talk to around the menopause. Again, I don't think there's a fire risk assessment employer in the country where we would facilitate that. Directed to people at a certain point, you know, they're going through the menopause or at a point age-wise that we predict that we will move through menopause, because I think self-evidently what suggested is people would prefer to have the conversation before they move through the menopause, because at the point of moving through, then we can realise that some of the behaviours are associated with the menopause, and then that kind of reassurance there. So that will be facilitated through the occupational health teams. But you've also got, you've spoken to a couple of individuals there this morning in the Learning Lunch, who provide and support the Menopause Lounge. And the Menopause Lounge is very much about individuals who have experience of or are going through the menopause, having the space to talk. And the more and more familiar and more comfortable people are about having the kind of conversation, the more and more that they will access those kind of services. So I'm no surprise to me when we were to report back in 12 months, 18 months from now, the number of people who are comfortable having a conversation. Because when the authority are seen as employers of choice, and they're seen as kind of recognised the challenges that people have in the workplace on occasion, then you just open up the ability for people to come forward a little bit more and start to have those conversations. And so some of the actions that were taken, the release of the policy in its totality, support the conversations, and then individuals who are conducting those conversations are very much immersed in seeing it as significant and important, and comfortable having those conversations. But we can, if they feel it's appropriate, give them a little bit more support for that to engage the conversations in the first instance.
Okay, any other points, any other questions? No?
I think it's very good.
Okay, so can we agree the recommendation on page 59? But I think it's on the basis of the word women will be replaced with an appropriate word. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, move on to item 7 on page 81, staff survey results for 2022. Over to the chief.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Again, I know many members on the committee today were dialed in to listen to the feedback that we've had from people insight in regard to our staff engagement outcomes. So, the purpose of the course is to formalise that insight in a documented form. So the purpose of the course is to inform members of the results of the 5th Merseyside Fire Rescue Authority Staff Engagement Survey, and it's recommended that members note the survey. And again, I go back to referencing the fact that the 5th, our first goes back to 2014, and over the years from 2014 until the current position that we're in, we've seen significant improvements in staff engagement. And arguably, this year, that is despite the fact that we were right in the throes of a period of pay dispute at the local level, and the cost of living crisis is affecting communities across the whole of our area. So evidently there's legitimate reasons you would argue around the staff engagement levels dropping or declining significantly over that period. But we haven't seen that, and what people insight report back, and certainly report back in relation to Merseyside against other fire rescue services was really, really strong response and engagement score. The survey itself looks at a number of kind of questions and captured on page 82, paragraph 9, which talks about everything from goal clarity, my job, employee involvement, through to culture, values, change management, and so on. Those then inform the overall staff engagement survey. So for Merseyside, for 2022, the staff engagement was 86%, which puts us in the highest quartile of performing organisations. And I use organisations because actually, people inside work across the public and private sector. It's not just public sector, it's not just fire and rescue services, albeit we do the surveys for 27% of fire and rescue services. And when asked around our performance against others, I think you probably see us as one of the, if not the highest performing fire and rescue service. And when asked on paragraph 16 of the report, we asked Costa, who is from People Insight for a perspective, so we can kind of understand what that means in a broad sense. He said it's an incredible outcome in light of the national industrial climate and the cost of living challenges faced by employees. And in the conversation with Adam was not necessarily surprised, but was really thrilled the fact that we've maintained that level of engagement through this period. So, as I say, the report is there, it's self-explanatory. It talks about where we're performing well, talk about areas that we can focus in on to improve even further, and then it goes on to break it down to certain sections reflective of the areas of focus I've previously described. Chair, I'll probably leave it at that point and open a bit to any questions from the
Okay, thanks. Can I just say, I think the whole thing really is best summed up in paragraph 15, where it says maintaining such a high engagement score during such a difficult time for everyone is outstanding performance, which has kept MFRS in a very strong position. So anyway, open for questions, comments, Les?
Yes, thank you. I think firstly, it's good and right, and it was the right policy, obviously, to continue with 3-year, surveys. We could have said, well, we know what's going on, we'll postpone it this year, we won't do it, but no. Having it was obviously the right thing to do, and it's something that we should bear in mind in the future, because the country's not out of the woods yet. I was expecting, I didn't know what the outcome would be, but given the background, I'm very pleasantly surprised. Maybe I should have expected that we would have had quite a good engagement score. It's very pleasing to see that. Obviously, it would have been better if more than 32% of the staff had contributed. It goes without saying. But thank you to those members of staff who did contribute. We will use the information that they've provided us constructively, and it's obviously shows us that even against a difficult background, it's the right thing to do to ask the staff for views on a 3-year sort of cycle. And also thank you to the company for undertaking that for us.
And just if I may respond as well, because Councillor Barron picked up on kind of key part of this, we've asked staff out their views and perspectives on working in Merseyside Fire and Rescue Service for the authority, and we act on that feedback too. So the information that will come back, the reason why we've made such progress over a number of years, but back from 2014, is because not only do we conduct a survey on a regular basis to inform and benchmark it, but we actually act on the views and opinions that have been expressed. So we ask for people's opinion, tell us, and then we will do something about it, and that forms the basis of an action plan moving forward, which will be regularly brought back to the authority too.
When we could look at issues, maybe the company could help us, suggest issues that might enable a greater engagement or marginal understanding. But something's got to give in the climate of what we've gone through in the last few years. And if it's the choice to actually complete the survey is the thing that's dropped off, then fair enough. Because actually, it's the information that people are giving us that we need to feed into our policy making.
Thanks, Les. Anybody else? No? Okay, so you're happy to agree the recommendations set out on page 81? Note the survey, the outcomes? Yeah? Okay, thank you very much.
But I think as an organisation, as a political management of this, we can be very pleased with them.
Yeah.
Very pleased.
Yeah. Okay, move on to item 8, succession planning. Again, back to the chief, please. 115.
Thanks, Chair. As I say, the policies which I'm bringing back to the authority, because they are policies and that's absolutely appropriate. This one relates to succession planning. Again, one of the observations from the inspectors a couple of years ago now is to kind of strengthen our succession planning arrangements, and this policy seeks to do that, notwithstanding the fact that the work is taking place to do exactly that. We felt it appropriate to have it captured within the officers of the policy. And equally, it's a reflection of the fact that actually for the public sector in the broader sense, succession planning is pivotal, as is the recruitment and retention of the staff. And self-evidently, some of the work that we've done more latterly is about reward recognition, but that links directly into succession planning. So as individuals leave the service, we've got ready-made replacements for them, and/or we've got alternative arrangements in place to ensure that the continuity of service is maintained. And that is the auspices of the succession plan and policy and the associated quality impact assessment. So, most notably, the purpose of the course is to inform members of the revised succession plan and framework utilised within Merseyside Fire Risk Authority proposed succession plan and policy. And then the recommendation that the members approve the draft succession plan and policy, subject to any significant changes resulting in consultation and report back to the authority if necessary. We don't envisage that to be the case. What we do envisage is to build on this and the succession plan and approach will from a I know avoid saying June now, but from a fire and rescue service perspective, non-operational roles, I think that's where the focus of our attention needs to be. We've got strong and robust workforce planning arrangements in place for operational staff, but the skills and technical knowledge required of specific roles in this organisation is where a significant amount of the focus will be around succession planning, and the intention will be part and parcel of that won't necessarily come to the authority unless it's necessary to do so. But part and parcel of our budget planning processes, as a precursor to that, we will look at the whole organisation around the roles and the succession arrangements in place, department by department, function by function, to ensure that they are suitable and sufficient to deliver our plans, which are either the budget, community financial plan, or indeed the IRP. That is the intention. So regularly come back and review our succession plan and arrangement based on a digital policy. That's the question.
Okay, thanks very much. Right, any questions, any comments? Les?
Sorry, I'm editor today, of course, but recruitment, retention, yes, but also very important is career development and promotion. Because we at the top of the organisation, we are underrepresented by the underrepresented groups, and we have always taken the view that we don't shy away from positive action to try and ensure that we have a flat representation as best we can from our great people. So giving people, I think it's very important for this organisation, career development, and helping them to get training, to be exposed to situations where it would stretch them and enable them to have, develop their career is a very good and important thing.
Okay, thanks, Les. Yep, Jan?
Again, just to say, I think succession planning, particularly in such detail, each area is just such an excellent way to do it. Having worked for many organisations with succession planning, the repercussions of people suddenly moving post and knowledge disappearing, or people being unprepared for taking over roles. So I think this is excellent.
Okay, thanks, Jan. Anybody else? Oh, right, okay, so can we agree the recommendation on page 115 of the agenda? Agreed. Right, thank you very much. Move on to item 9 on page 139. And again, I'll invite the chief to introduce the report, please.
Thanks, Chair. We go about saying the policy and the necessity of a domestic violence policy. But notwithstanding that, we've had domestic violence policy since 2008. But this report kind of updates and refreshes the policy itself on the basis of some changes which I will describe. The purpose of the report is to update members on the changes made to the domestic violence policy, which takes into account Home Office Domestic Abuse Statutory Guide, the introduction of the Domestic Abuse Act 2021, and the introduction of the Silent Serious Violence Duty. And the recommendation is it's recommended that members agree to the revised domestic violence policy. Again, I'd say it's relatively self-evident why we would have a policy with tactically accompanying the quality impact assessment, which is positive in respect of the work that we will do. And the bits that I would just draw members' attention to it in the policy, what the policy seeks to do is provide the explanation. It talks about the identification of domestic violence in the workplace. It moves on to talk about the protocols for dealing with domestic violence at work. supportive arrangements and measures that we've got in place to assist staff who are experiencing domestic violence in one way, shape or form. And if a member of the staff is a perpetrator, what actions we would take. And then it also includes references to local support agencies and national domestic violence helplines. And so it is trying to be supportive of all staff, recognising that with 1,000 employees, self-evidently a couple of individuals within the workforce who are potentially exposed to domestic violence in some way, shape or form, and policies there to support them. But it's very much reflective of some of the changes that have taken place and the duties now that are placed on the authority. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much. Lily?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. This obviously all relates to your staff and anyone who works with them, but I know certainly like within the council that we were given training like for one-stop shop staff, various other around sort of recognising it and what to do and signposts. And so as part of your policy, will there be any training for people not experiencing it but recognising it and signposting it and how to sort of make that referral if you think it's happening and dig out, on the visit or?
Yeah, thanks, Chair.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff that we would witness outside of the workplace, so people's homes maybe, or in the communities, whether it be hate crime or whether it be domestic violence, is captured around some of the safeguard arrangements that we've got in place and the things that we would expect people to see. And if we do see and witness, then refer back in and push for our safeguarding protocols. So we do train people around what behaviour is normal and what behaviour is abnormal in regard to the kind of a domestic setting, and ensuring that we've got the processes in place for that information to come back into the service and then be discharged through the LADO from a local authority perspective. And that gives us that assurance. So it's twofold. One is absolutely what happens internally and support we give to staff, but the other is externally and the safeguarding of our communities in relation to witnessing some of these things. So staff are absolutely trained in respect of what to see and what to report.
It might be worth having that into domestic violence policy that it sort of ties in, and I know that relates, but obviously if you're doing it in one policy, it's just around the red flags and that staff are trained in it, because in that it doesn't say they are in identifying it too, just as in policy.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I checked that and that's it. More often than not, there's a range of associated service instructions that underpin the policy. And so I've just looked there, safeguarding isn't being included as yet, but I will strengthen it around the training to identify it in the first instance, and then we'll put the policies the instructions that underpin it in the document too.
Okay, Lynn?
Yeah, I definitely think that's a really good point to do that, because most of the time, people who are in coercive, controlling relationships don't even recognise it themselves. It sort of hits them like a Britain place was going to say, but that's the wrong. Yeah, apologies. The other thing I was going to ask is, I do remember this, I haven't made it up. We went on I'm sure it was a station visit, and there was an initiative that the fire authority were doing, working with the hidden victims of domestic abuse, the children that witness stuff, and they sort of were taking them out. We did like a little award thing where they could get certificates at the end of it. Is that still running, or did I dream that?
No, you didn't. So I'll try
to
and
awake from that one.
Yeah.
We delivered, we just had a meeting of on the board which has been focused in on prevention and the prevention work we do, and I suppose how we meet our science duty. I'll be sensitive now around the school that we're working with, because I don't think that's necessarily appropriate to kind of share the perspective. We've been working with a particular school, and the school is in quite a challenging area, and a lot of the young people that attend that school have challenges associated with the wider life outside the school, if we put it in that, from that perspective. And the school have nominated those individuals to go on our beacon course. And our beacon course is very much about developing resilience in young people, as well as being fun and engaging and firefighting. Brian's kind of presented certificates more latterly. So very much focused in around the child, recognising the adverse childhood experiences that some of the young people are witnessing and exposed to. And so that programme is one of the kind of key facets for us around engaging with young people, recognising that some young people's life is not the same as others, and working with them to provide that little bit of personal resilience and support in an educational setting, and creating that relationship between our positive, strong role models, and recognising that actually you can behave maybe differently than others on different sets of circumstances. So that is absolutely integral in what we do. And we've been doing it for a long time, and we'll be absolutely crystal clear. The fact that now governments have put out a statutory duty around serious violence, I sit here and when the inspector come, and we've been doing this for years, so it's nothing new. It's very much based on young people and very much for the school to nominate young people who they feel will most benefit, and not more often than not for the people who are exposed to adverse childhood experiences, or for the vital of real anxiety going to school to go back onto an educational platform. And so very proud of some of that work we do, to be very honest with you. But it's still very much an integral part of what Merseyside Fire Authority deliver in the communities that we serve.
I think also the things on the fire engine, advertising, yeah. I've had at least 2 people come to me and said they didn't know that particular help was out there, and they just happened to be passing the station and the fire engine is there. So you just never know, those messages just definitely.
Chair, if I may as well,
Yeah.
we've had all our fire stations are safe treatments, third party crime reporting centres, and we've had a couple of examples in the last number of weeks which just fill me with pride, where young people have presented themselves at the front door of a fire station based on what firefighters have said to them when they've been out in the community, at the school or just when working in the community, and then they present themselves because they felt at threat, vulnerable and concerned. We've looked after them, and we've got them taken back to their own environment by colleagues from the police. It's very much about that relationship that we have in our communities, based on some of the programs that we're talking about, and the way we speak to people, if being honest with you.
Okay, yeah, Jenny?
Just a quick one, in your local support agencies, up and down the sector.
I noticed that there was Swan, isn't it?
Yeah, it's up and down the sector.
Okay.
There's stuff in sector, but it's just not on here.
I think
It's quite short.
with all that's going on nationally and locally, I think maybe we ought to have a look at putting some more resources into in-service training. I know we do a lot, but it might well be that we just have a look at what we do provide in terms of staff training on all of these messages, and exactly how we can implement it. When we've got networks, and we're trying to do a lot of other things, but I think the authority needs to assure itself that it is going the extra mile to ensure that the important messages are properly delivered.
Okay,
Can we look at that?
okay. Can I just comment on paragraph 10 on page 140, on the bit at the end where it says emotional abuse can be just as harmful as physical violence. Over the last few years, as a local councillor in the Wirral, I've built up a good relationship with the Wirral Women's Refuge, and I'm honoured that they feel comfortable me even going there, to be honest. But when you speak to some of the women there, some of them say it's much worse. The emotional violence is actually worse. I've even heard women say to me, I would sooner my partner had hit me, and, which is very sad. So we shouldn't underestimate, because there's still a perception out there with a lot of people that domestic violence is one person, hitting somebody else. It's the emotional violence that is, in many cases, is worse. Okay, anyway, happy to move to the recommendation on page 139. And is that agreed?
Yeah, agree revision.
Right, thank you very much. So we now move to page 169, the proposed refurbishment of Speak and Garston and Old Swan fire stations. Over to the chief.
Can I just quickly say, before, we've got items G to I, which are exempt items.
Yeah.
Then members wish to discuss any of that content, can just please let the chair know, and we will close the meeting and ask the, any members of the passion to get to you. If not, we can remain.
Okay,
It's exempt item.
anyone? No? Everyone happy to carry on?
Yeah.
Okay, then, right, thanks very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. And we've been, well, Anthony set to the left-hand side as well, so any questions around the makeup and the plans for the said stations and the refurbishments, then I may well direct it towards Anthony. But the purpose of the report is to seek approval proposed refurbishments of Old Swan and Street Garston fire stations, and those stations mirror each other. That will be self-evident within the report itself. We're built at the same time, so it's very similar indeed. And the recommendations recommend that members note the content of the report, note the outcome of the formal tender process, which is captured within Appendix G, and approve the award of the contract to Red Tree Building Contractors at the values given below, which is 691,330 for Old Swan, 693,507 for Street Garston, and the reason why they are so similar in the construction and the build. I suppose like anything else, I've got to say, I think the authority's investment in our infrastructure, our assets, our stations, the facilities we provide to our teams is second to none across the whole of the UK Fire and Rescue Service. But we continue to invest in those stations and those facilities to make sure that they are fit for purpose on the basis of accessibility and also meet the needs of our diverse workforce. And hence the reason why these reports are coming back particularly. And if I'll just a couple of bits for your knowledge and information. Current layout is restrictive and we lack sufficient privacy due to dormitory style night rooms and shared wash and WC facilities. You know, that needs to improve, you know, self-evidently, you know, as we're looking at the diverse workforce. We've got a kind of a stick and plaster arrangement. It's not suitable, it's not sufficient, we need to change. Under the refurbishment, we will see the provision of 7 single-use study rooms, with a number of single and gender neutral shower and wash facilities, and this will no doubt improve the conditions on the station and direct refinements elsewhere, particularly the London Culture Review, and meet our requirements for equity legislation. And you know, and that is as much the basis of some of the changes, but also it extends beyond that. Because when we're making some of the changes, we will also, in preparation for our move towards carbon net zero by 2040, we'll be inserting mechanical and electric pumps to ensure that we are able to limit the carbon footprint. And you know, and simple things like we will be replacing the flooring in the appliance room to resin-based flooring to ensure that staff injuries are negated or minimised through slip, trips and falls. So it's very much predicated on the working environment for staff, very much ensuring that it's, you know, it's accessible facilities and they are equitable in how we treat people. But equally we will be making ourselves more carbon efficient and also creating a safer environment for staff working on those particular stations. But you know, reasonably healthy investments in those stations, but you know, that will bring them up to a kind of the same levels of some of our newer stations that were subsequently built in the last number of years. Any questions, Chair?
Okay, thanks, Chief. Right, any questions, any comments? Yep, Jan?
Yeah, just a comment about having just attended the LGA training in country where I was mixing with a lot of health authority members from around the country. I think this is hugely important in terms of equality and diversity. Some areas are still struggling to be able to recruit female firefighters because they don't have the facilities. And it's not even just female, it's how we protect the species. It needs to be up to date, and I think it's important, well, crucial to be the best fire service in the UK, but yeah, it needs to go ahead. And one, I hope it doesn't seem like a flippant question, but page 170, paragraph 8. What is clean water cladding?
So green wall cladding is, again, Andy might come in here, it means you can just write it down by
Like,
yeah, yeah, not just single in tiles, so we do other,
I think it's plasticized.
yeah. Like that is a very example of green
I
wall.
don't think that is, but yeah.
No,
It's plastic. It's just like plastic sheets which are shaped into the wall recesses around window sills, etc. It just gives you a clean surface that you can wipe down. And it's just easily clean. And it gives a more hygienic feel to it as well.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
Just be closer to you first.
Yeah. Now I know why we invited you along this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Well done, yeah.
Right, thanks, Jack. Any other questions, any comments? No?
No, exactly
Okay.
what we need to do, it's absolutely, you know, this needed a long time ago, so it's a good thing.
Okay, so happy to approve the recommendation on page 169?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Unless anybody tells me otherwise, I think we've concluded all the items on the agenda. We haven't got a date for the next meeting, because that will all be sort of following the AGM in June, and new dates are set, etc. So I think, so this is the last meeting, I think, before the local election, so can we just wish best of luck to anybody here who's standing in local election? I'm not sure if there's anybody here
If only they bought chocolate.
who's not standing for any.
Slowly, but-
Oh yeah, Les has brought the chocolate, so you can note that, right? Is anybody here who's not standing for whatever reason in forthcoming elections? No? Okay,
Well, some of us are standing for election, and we hope to be re-elected,
yeah.
and we hope to appear back here, you know, but I think that's right, Chair, I mean, Easter message important. Also,